So by this point, you've got a doc with a framework written on it, and you've maybe got a bunch of qualitative data or voice of customer data to help you get inside the heads and hearts of your customers. Okay, now we get to take that voice of customer or VOC data and plug it into our framework. This is the kind of magical part. Here we go. So I am a big fan of problem, agitation, solution because people buy solutions to problems. They also buy dreams. So that's an important reason to have desire, obstacle, and solution. However, I know that this is just where I gravitate towards. I like opening with a problem. I can always change that later, but this is a really strong starting point, I find, in almost every case imaginable. So what we want to do now is go to our library of voice of customer data that we've captured. Again, I say library, it does not have to be some enormous library. We're going to write a sales email here, so it doesn't have to be huge in any way. What I want to do is go through this, and now this might be a little hard for you to see, but I'll show you when we start organizing it on the page. I want to go through and look at some of the problems that people say drove them to Huel, what Huel solves for them. So here's an example. I was really tired of frozen meals or boring sandwiches and soups for lunch. I'm a truck driver and got tired of cold deli sandwiches. Okay, here's another one. I've just plain grown tired of the cooking game. I get tired of leftovers more easily and hate to waste a huge amount of food. Another, definitely the initial push was like, how can I not spend $10, $15 a meal right now? And then so on and so forth. What I've seen so far is two separate notes on being tired. So I was really tired of frozen meals and I was really tired of the cooking game. Now what I want to do here, because these are really specific, I'm just going to drag them into agitation, and because it's an agitated point. So I'll get into this in just a second and explain to you why. But I was tired of frozen meals and I had just plain grown tired of the cooking game. So then our problem that we have for those, again, I've just plain grown tired of the cooking game. I get tired of leftovers more easily and hate to waste a huge amount of food. I also want to up my own lunch game. So tired of frozen meals and lunch meat. This person also said I was really tired of frozen meals. So that's interesting. It does not make that true for everybody, but this is a sales email. And what's really good about writing emails is you can make different ones about different things. The homepage or a landing page on a site typically has to be like universally true. Like you might not be able to say on a sales page, hey, or on a homepage, sorry, hey, tired of frozen meals, because now it's like Huel as a brand is positioned against frozen meals. And that might not actually be true for Huel at all. However, in email, one email you fire off in, let's say, a nurturing sequence or a sales sequence, or as even a retargeting email for people who abandon cart, that can be a really great place to talk about the problem that is being tired of the cooking game. And what I love here is I've just plain grown tired of the cooking game. So I'm just going to do that here. Perfect. So now I have problem. I'm agitating it with these two examples so far. I might find more, and I'm not going to worry about solution yet. This is the part where we get to talk about ourselves. So we can use voice of customer for that, but we don't have to worry too much about it yet. What we can start to see is I'm organizing things on the page in such a way where we can start to weave together a narrative that's more compelling for our prospect. Okay, so I've added a few more notes here. In this case, I've gone ahead and added some voice of customer data, just started putting it on the page. It's not organized in any way yet outside of problem, agitation, solution. So the problem we identified is I've grown tired of the cooking game. We're agitating that with a few examples of frozen meals being annoying, tired of eating yogurt or microwave boxed meal. So we're going to go back and make that all, I'm just going to tighten it up. And then the solution, we have to keep in mind that what we're doing here is we've captured a whole bunch of voice of customer data, and now in organizing it on the page so that we can write copy with it, we want to make sure we're only including things that have to do with the problem that we've set up here. So Huel doesn't only solve the problem of growing tired of cooking. It solves all sorts of problems. We already saw weight loss as a possible problem that it solves, but we're not going to talk about that as a solution here because we want to focus the message around solving this one problem. If we can convincingly solve that one problem in this email, then if a person opens this email up because they're like, yeah, I'm tired of cooking. It's one thing to cook dinner where I'm surrounded by like my family, but it's another thing to like have to make lunches where I go off to work and I sit at my desk and I eat this crappy salad that I don't care about. I might as well do something else because I can save all this time, etc. So we're not going to talk in the solution area about weight loss or anything that's not directly tied to that initial problem. Sorry for scrolling up and down on this. I know that can be nauseating to look at, but we're going to just focus around this problem. So here's what we can do with that voice of customer data in order to start turning this into something closer to copy. Okay, so far I have turned that opening problem that I identified into what's going to be the headline on this e-commerce email. Some emails don't require headlines and they're formatted and arranged differently, but for this one, it's e-commerce. E-commerce typically does like a headline in their email. So that's what we have. Then I've taken a bunch of this stuff and turned it into tired of leftovers, tired of frozen meals, cold lunches, and lunch meat. Cool, we'll get rid of that. And then we can continue on. Okay, so that's left me with this now, which is incorporating a bunch of what is down here. Now, what this starts to get into is some of the solutions that people have tried. They've tried food service in workplaces. So we can start to pull that down into the solution section. Okay, that brings us here. So we've now got, I had just plain grown tired of the cooking game. And then we are agitating that a bit with real life examples. And then we're getting into this solutions that you've tried. You've tried to eat healthy, but even boring sandwiches have hidden fats. The food services at work are no better. Okay, now what we have below is the actual solution, which is Huel. So this is the solution you tried that failed you. And now we're going to dig into the solution that you should be going with from this point on, which is Huel. Okay, so here's where we end up with a rough draft made entirely of voice of customer data. I had just plain grown tired of the cooking game. Then we get into agitating that, then the solution. You've tried these solutions, they haven't worked, which is why you'll love Huel. Now, this is a really simple transition because it's an email coming from Huel. They already know who Huel is, so we don't have to introduce Huel as a solution. We can just say, which is why you'll love Huel. Huel is, and then we tell them how it's the solution to the problem they just had. The end of packing lunches, staring into the cupboard, waiting for the water to boil so you can rehydrate salty noodles. We want to make sure that this all sounds not desirable. None of this should sound desirable. Replace the most boring meal of the day, lunch, with 2 scoops of Huel, a liter of water blended for 10 seconds or shaken for 20. Then we insert a testimonial and then we close it. That's it. That covers off so much of what people told us. So we can go ahead and just delete it. Now, if we wanted to say more about how Huel has the right nutrients, etc., in case that's an objection that people have, like, well, I can't replace my lunch because I need all these nutrients, then we could add in more here in like a PS or just a little extension, a separate section that talks about what is so great about Huel and how it can replace your lunch because it has all of these nutrients, etc., etc. We could do that, but we're not doing that right here. You could feel free to do that if you wanted to. Now, what you might also be wondering is, why is this a narrow little column of text here? And that is because I prefer to write emails, and I recommend you do the same, where you make the actual width of that email more like what people will see on their mobile device. So I bring the margin in here up to 1.5, and then I pull it over another 1.5 on the right side as well. And this more accurately reflects that. Just a side note so you can see how long your paragraphs get, and that can help you with editing and keeping things nice and readable. I want to pause for a second to introduce you to the importance of specificity, but I want to go even further than the word specificity. What I want to invite you to listen for in VOC data is either the moment of highest tension or the moment of highest pleasure. Now, those are your customers' expressions of real lived moments that drive them to seek out your solution, and real lived moments of delight they experience when they're using your solution. If you can identify moments of highest tension and moments of highest pleasure, you can include those in your conversion frameworks to bring them to life. Here is what I mean. So what we can do to introduce that moment of highest tension here, that real specificity we're looking for, I just go to where I want to make it more specific, because this is all a little surface level. What does packing lunches look like? What are leftovers like? How do they look? How do they smell? How much do you actually want to avoid them on day 3? Like, is this still okay? Am I still going to be happy with this meal? So these are just like summary statements, and a good way to know if you are being specific is to close your eyes and have somebody read it to you, or have somebody else close their eyes and you read the copy to them, and ask them after you're done reading it to tell you what they saw, like what came to mind in their head. And if it's like, oh, I saw a kitchen, or I saw a brown paper bag or something, then that's them inserting that in a lot of cases, because there's no brown bag here, there's no kitchen here. You're just saying things that take place in a kitchen or that often have a brown bag. So they're inserting visuals in there that don't actually exist, and we want those visuals to exist so that it's more likely that the message will stick in their head and resonate with them. We want to dig into that imagination, which is what words are so, so good for. Okay, so I'm going to hit enter a couple times because I don't like to delete things until I'm sure I'm done with them. And then even then, I often just like cut it and paste it into something else. So just keep that in mind. You could do whatever feels right to you, but in case you're like, why is she hitting enter? Here's why. Okay, so what we want to do is bring this part to life, that moment of highest tension, the real lived experience. So what's going on in that moment. And this is where you might have good voice of customer data where they really walk you through that painful moment, and you can just basically type out your memory of that, of what they told you, the way they told it, where like the really interesting details continue to stick with you. Or you can write it yourself. Okay, so here's where we bring what people were talking about when they were talking about packing lunches. This is where we bring it to life. So you peer into an open drawer in your refrigerator, and a half-sealed package of bologna looks back at you. You glance up. At the back of the fridge is a container of lettuce leaves, wilted. You close the fridge. You might have to hit the drive-thru for lunch today again. Or you could place your order for Huel now and avoid the lunch problem from now on. Then we add a product shot and a button, and then we stick with what we were saying before. So this is just bringing that part to life. It doesn't mean that this is necessarily superior to what we had, although I would argue that it is going to be more likely to stick inside the head of your prospect. And the next time they're staring into their fridge and they really are looking at a package of deli meat, and then they do see that like clamshell container that has a bunch of like old arugula stuck to it on the sides, in that moment they'll be like, I actually am tired of going through this every day, and now maybe Huel is a good solution for me. So this is what we want to do with that moment of highest tension. This is the moment when you're like, oh, I wish I had ordered Huel already, and we're going to try to get them to solve that right away. As you can see with conversion copywriting, you create a rough draft using VOC data. So you don't need to stare at the page and like imagine what to write. Those days are over. Now, that does not mean every single thing a customer says is going to be like pure gold and earn a place on the page. Not at all. Some of it is summarized. Some of it is just like way too specific. And a lot of it is super bland. Some of it will only speak to customers who don't look like your future customers. Like, for example, if you're finding VOC from people who may not even be good prospects for you, and you're using it to try to win over enterprise prospects, things might not click. So you don't want to do that. So what we want to do is take VOC with a grain of salt, and wherever possible, listen and mine in the spaces where our actual customers and prospects are talking right now. And again, keep in mind, this is an introductory lesson. We teach how to run surveys and interviews in our training. What I hope you take away from this is that you do not have to include yourself in the process of writing copy. Your customers and your prospects, they will tell you about what they're thinking at top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel. You just actively listen
and put it on the page in a persuasive framework.